Have you ever needed to sign a contract and you didn't know what you were reading or even what a contract was? And you felt like if you missed one little thing on the contract, it was going to ruin your whole life? I'm here with my mom today, who's been a lawyer for over 25 years, and she's going to break down what a contract is and what you should be looking for in a contract, and a couple other things too. So, this is my mom, Kathy.
Hi.
And just to let you know, I'm going to be kind of like an interviewer asking the questions, maybe some questions you might have. And she's going to be herself answering those questions for us. And English is not her first language. Her first language is French, so she has a little accent, but just bear with it. So why we're making this video is to help anyone out there who's been in that position before, who didn't even really know what a contract was, but they needed to sign it, whether it was for a brand deal or they were starting a business, maybe a record deal, whatever it was, whether you're an entrepreneur, an artist, whatever industry you're in, this will probably help you later on in life. So we're really just trying to help all of you understand what a contract is. All right, so first question, what is a contract?
Well, Alex, this is a really good question. A contract is an agreement between parties. What that means, it's two parties talking to each other and making sure that they agreed upon the same thing so that the actual contract will reflect what they really want.
And can it just be two people or can it be more than two parties?
Could be as many parties as needed, as long as everybody are on the same page and understand what is in the actual agreement and to make sure that it reflects what they really want.
Okay, and these contracts, do they have to be on paper? Like, does it have to be a paper with 10, 20, 30 pages like we see in the movies and stuff? Or can it be verbal? Can it be through a text message, a phone call? What is a valid contract?
Okay, so this is another really good question, Alex. People think that a contract is a piece of paper. It's not really that because, as I said earlier, a contract is an agreement between two parties. So just shaking hands, it's a contract.
And that will hold up in the court of law?
That's the other part we'll talk about a bit later, but mainly a verbal contract, it's difficult to prove.
Okay.
So that's why we prefer having a written contract.
And if it was a text, sorry to cut you off, if it was a text message, would that be enough?
Depends what's in the text message, because if you can prove that there is an intention to bind each other, to bind the parties, then it could be a contract, if there's the essential element we're going to talk about.
Okay, so that brings us to the next question. What are the essential elements to validate a contract for it to hold up in the court of law, basically?
Well, first of all, you need consent. That means that both parties has to consent to the purpose of the contract.
Okay. And for consent, is that like a signature?
No, it could be like shaking hands or saying okay, Alex, my car is for sale. And then you say, oh, okay, great, I would like to buy it. Or more, I want to buy it.
Okay.
And then I would say, okay, it's $20,000. Perfect. We have a contract.
A verbal contract.
Yeah, a verbal contract.
Cool.
So first, the consent. Then you have to make sure that the people who are signing the contract or entering into a contract, if it's a verbal contract, has the capacity. That means that, first of all, the party has to be major.
Like over 18 years old or over 21?
Or 21, depending on where you sign the contract. Then you have to make sure that the person is sound of mind. She has the mental capacity to enter into a contract.
Right. I'm sure you all know what that means.
What if you
maybe
don't?
Not. Yeah, maybe not.
Maybe not.
Like healthy mind.
Healthy minds, no major mental issues, not intoxicated.
Yeah, that's a big one. If you're drunk and you sign a contract,
you're lacking judgment.
Yeah, you're lacking judgment. So you might be able to, I don't know how to explain that, but yeah, if you're drunk, don't sign a contract. But if you do, you can get out of it probably, if you can prove you were drunk.
Then the other thing about capacity is if you sign a contract with a company. So let's say one of the party is XYZ Inc. and the signing person is Mr. Jones.
Okay.
So you want to make sure that Mr. Jones is actually one of the officers of the company, that he has the right to sign the contract on behalf of the company. So we have the consent, we have the capacity. Then you have the consideration, which means that if I sell you something, you have to give me something in return. So usually it would be money.
Right.
One other thing actually that's important is the contract cannot be about something that is illicit or illegal. So it cannot ask you to go rob a bank.
Yeah, it can't be illegal.
No.
Okay. Have the right age, consent, consideration. What else?
The other thing is it has to be clear. The contract has to be clear.
For both parties.
For both parties, which means, again, I'm going to give the example of the car. Alex, I have a car for sale. I say, oh, okay, I'm interested. Yeah. What kind of car? Oh, it's looks like a Nissan. And now I think it's grayish. Like you don't give much, detail. And then you sign the contract. The person give you $5,000, but he doesn't even know what kind of car he's buying.
You could have signed for any car, basically. Yeah.
So you have to make sure that there's no ambiguity when you sign the contract. That you have to understand everything that's in the contract.
And so that's where some of you might have had trouble in the past or might have some trouble in the future. Maybe you're an artist signing a record deal or something. They're putting all these big words in front of you that you don't even know what they mean when really they could have simplified it for you. Yeah. So if you're ever in a situation like that, you could ask them to draft the contract again, which means remake the contract and make it more clear for you. You're allowed to not understand certain things and you could tell them that. You have every right to do that.
Exactly. The other big thing I see is the term of the contract,
right?
Which means like, Alex, I will provide you services I will be your manager. Okay, let's do that. It's going to be for 10 years and it's going to, after 10 years, it's going to renew automatically. And you're going to pay me 50% more after 10 years. Yeah. You don't have to, you don't have to say yes or no, it's automatic. Do you want to do that? Do you want to sign for 10 years?
Definitely not. Make sure you're looking out for the terms.
Yeah. So one thing I recommend actually is, obviously, like you have to understand something. When you sign a contract, there's two parties. The one who provides the service wants to have as little risk as possible and get as much money as they want. Yeah. The other person who's getting the service wants the best service ever and pay as little as they want.
Yeah.
Which is fine. That's what you want. But you have to find a way to come up with a solution and to come up with a good contract where both of the party will be happy. The other thing that I see, people will take contract off the internet and think that, oh, must be a good contract.
Yeah, or ChatGPT. I know a lot of you guys are making contracts on ChatGPT or any other AI stuff. Don't do that. If you do, make sure it's a good contract, but just don't do that,
So I will give you an example, Alex. Okay, so we're in Quebec City. I want to enter into a contract with you, but for some reason, I put as a applicable law, New York. Yeah. And the jurisdiction, New York. Do you want that, Alex?
No, because then it's technically void. All that section of the contract,
No, it's not void. Okay. But it means that if you have a conflict, you're going to have to hire a lawyer in New York to defend yourself. You're going to have to go to the court in New York to defend yourself. Do you know how much it costs to a lawyer in New York?
That's happened with me, by the way, where I didn't sign the contract, but I had a contract where the person wanted me to sign and the laws weren't even laws that applied in the province of Quebec where I am. So I just didn't sign the contract. Basically, this is another thing that we're trying to teach you so that you can look for because it probably will happen to you in the future.
Okay, so the other thing that I will say is confidentiality. So that's a good one because when you enter into a contract with someone, you don't want everybody to know what you put in your contract.
Yeah.
Before entering into a contract, I would suggest you have an NDA, which is a non-disclosure agreement.
So you could have the NDA in the actual contract?
You could also.
Or have an NDA separate?
I suggest always to have an NDA before you start any communication.
Okay.
So that way you're sure that whatever you're going to say is going to stay within. Even if you don't do business with that person, you protect whatever information you give.
Right. I'm sure you guys have heard about NDAs or what an NDA is. Doesn't mean that anyone's hiding anything. Someone's not going to ask you to sign an NDA just because they're hiding something or they want to hide something. It's just, again, like a contract to protect both people or both parties.
It's actually common practice to do that in business.
All right, so my next question is, when should someone contact a lawyer when they're trying to do business?
But I would say as soon as possible.
Right.
Because people tend to contact the lawyer once the contract is signed and they realize they did something they should not have signed the contract, which is okay. We'll try to help. I will work with whatever I have in front of me.
Yeah.
But I would recommend that you contact a lawyer at the beginning so that I can help to put, as an example, a term sheet together or a letter of intent. So that way, when you go to negotiate, you know exactly what you want in your contract, and you're in a better position to negotiate.
And what if someone can't afford to have a lawyer just to look over their contract? They might think, why do I need that? I know what I'm looking at. What happens then?
A lawyer is less expensive before you sign a contract than after you sign a contract.
All right, so another question. If someone has a contract that they already signed and then now they realize like, oh my God, I'm getting screwed over, or this isn't actually what I wanted or whatever because they looked at it by themselves without a lawyer, can they use past emails or text messages or even phone calls to show that the contract doesn't reflect their actual needs or intent or whatever?
That's an excellent question, Alex. Really good question. So basically, at the beginning, you exchange texts, emails, and you kind of like draw like what you want in the contract.
Right.
So what I would suggest is before you sign the contract, you go through your email and your text, and you make sure that everything is in the contract. Some people will put in the contract that the actual contract is whole contract and anything before is void. You don't want that.
Yeah.
If someone put that in the contract, it should raise a bit of a red flag because you're thinking, oh, okay, so now I have to really make sure everything that I send before by text, email is in the contract.
All right, so my last question. If you're about to sign a contract with another party and you see a red flag or something you don't want and ask them to change it and they don't want to and they tell you, no, we're not going to change it, this is the contract, this is what it's going to be, should you just not do business with that person if they're really adamant about not changing that? Or what should you do in that situation? If you really want to do business with this person, let's say it's a brand deal or something, and you really want the money, you really want whatever it is, should you still do business with them? Because it could screw you over in the future, right?
It depends. The best thing, as I said earlier, like people have different needs. If it's really important for you, ask.
But what
if they say no, think about what I can give to the other party so that it will give me what I want.
Yeah.
So you look at the contract as a whole. So you wish you can have everything you want, but sometimes it's impossible because of the different needs of the party. But if it's something that you really, really, really want and the other party is adamant that he's not going to give it to you, then I will say don't sign the contract because you're not going to be happy.
All right, so I think we've covered pretty much everything we can in a short amount of time and all the basic elements of a contract. If you have any other questions about a contract or about other things surrounding business, then definitely let me know and we'll make more videos together. We're just here to help you. Well, thank you for making this video with me. I really hope we helped some of these people.
Well, thank you, Alex, for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Me too. All right, I'll see you next time.